Hi, Assalamualaikum. My name is Nurul Afika binti Samsir and I'm going to summarize chapter 20 of Things Fall Apart part 3. In this chapter, Okonkwo plans to return to Umuofia to regain the 7 wasted years, and he wants to build a bigger compound, take 2 new wives, and get titles for his sons. And he also recovered from the tragic break with Nuoye, his eldest son, and he plans to find a husband for his daughter Azinma, who grew up during his father's exile. Azinma is the one he is close with because Azinma understands his father and carries out his request, which was persuading her half-sister to wait for marriage until they return to Umuofia. Okonkwo even wished that Azinma was a guy, not a woman. And then, when Okonkwo returned to Umuofia, Umuofia had changed dramatically, and when he saw the changes, he decided to discuss this matter with Obirika, and he asked Obirika why the people did not fight, and Obirika explained that they cannot fight against their own people who have abandoned the tribe and joined the strangers. And Obirika told Okonkwo that the white men are smart because they came quietly and peacefully, and they put a knife on the things that held them together. However, Okonkwo is slow to realize and determined that his sons will gain titles when the titles don't even matter anymore. And he ignored that the power has shifted to the Christian church and the representative of the British governments. So that is all for the summary of chapter 20. Moving on to significant parts. So the first significant part is the dramatic change in Umuofia. So the major change introduced by the white men was the Christian church. So the high-ranking respected men who have abandoned the way of clansmen, and there's also a court and English district commissioner who judge legal cases. And the white man's government assumes a central role not only with its court and its court messengers, but its prison and its executions. And then there's this one time the villagers called the messengers as sheep buttocks because of the color of the short they wear, and that actually made the messengers furious, and they get violent and aggressive towards the villagers. And next is the fallen society. So evil society has fallen apart because they can no longer act as one. The white men have destroyed the things that once united the clans. So that is all for the significant parts. Thank you.
Okay, hi everyone. So I'll be talking about part 3, chapter 21, Things Fall Apart by Chinua Achebe. So not everyone disliked the changes that took place in Umuofia, but many people in the clan actually appreciates the changes that made by the white men, particularly the trading stores and the money that is now flowing into Umuofia. Mr. Brown, he is the white missionary. He is a patient man who treads softly on his faith. Well, he became friendly with the clan's leader, including a man named Akuna. The two are able to peacefully and intellectually discuss about religion, and Brown becomes convinced that the most effective way to convert people is to not attack their religion. Even though Brown didn't get to convert Akuna, however, both of them they gain mutual understanding about each other's faith. Brown, he steps up his game and gain interest instead by building a hospital and a school in Umuofia. So Brown asks that children become the students of the school. At first, family only send their lazy child or slaves to the school. And then Brown says that the future leader of the land will be the ones that can read and write. If the clans don't have educated people, outsiders will lead them instead. So over time, families are convinced to it and they started to send their children to school. Then Brown visits Okonkwo to tell about the education of his son Ngoye, who is now called as Isaac after he converted into Christianity. And then Brown thinks that the news will actually please Okonkwo. However, he was driven away with threats instead. Okay, so Okonkwo returns to Umofia. It has proven to be unremarkable. Villagers are so preoccupied with the changes brought by the white men, they have little interest about the return of once a powerful farmer. His homecoming was not what he had hoped. No one actually took much notice of his arrival. He can't even proceed with his son's ceremonies as the rites are only held once every 3 years. It saddens him as he sees the once fierce Eumorphians becoming soft like women. He mourns for the clan, which he saw breaking up and falling apart, a phrase that again recalls the book's title. So the significant parts of this chapter is that we can see that the people in Eumorphia are slowly accepting the changes. The new religion is slowly taking over Eumorphia, and then we can see that the people, the villagers, are sending their children to the missionary school and make use of the hospital. This acts as a sign of civilization. The villagers are receiving education. And then Brown befriended the clan's leader and discussed about religion with Akuna. Well, this has shown that Mr. Brown is slowly winning over the villagers by trying to befriend them so that he can gain more interest and attention from the villagers. So that's all from me, I think, for chapter 21. So let's move on with the chapter 22.
Hi, my name is Afika and I will talk about chapter 22, summary and also significant parts. So firstly, we can see that Mr. Brown left the village, which is then placed by a new commissioner, which is Mr. Smith. So Mr. Smith is a very strict zealot, where he sees things as black and white and where he interprets that black is evil. Also, he is not as compassionate as Mr. Brown was, or as kind as Mr. Brown was. So the conflict for this chapter started when Enoch took off the Igugu's mask off. It is a response for the cane hitting that he received as he provoked them before. On the next day, the Igugu gathered from all the villages in the marketplace and stormed into Enoch's compound and destroyed it with fire and machetes. Though he is disappointed that his provocation doesn't really create a holy war, he hides as he doesn't want to be harmed by the Igugus. On the other hand, as the Igugus marched towards the church, the leader of the Igugu then was met by Mr. Smith and his interpreter. As the leader proceeds to talk to Mr. Smith and his interpreter, he also belittled him as he used a word that is not really understandable either by Mr. Smith or his interpreter. However, the church was still burned down by the Igugus despite Mr. Smith's effort to prevent them from doing that. Out of respect for Mr. Brown, they won't harm Mr. Smith at all. Then we will continue with the significant parts for this chapter. As we can see, there is a lot of differences between Mr. Smith and Mr. Brown. Mr. Brown is a very kind, a very compassionate person, and also a person who very much respects others' culture. However, from Mr. Smith, on the other hand, he is the kind of person who doesn't really care much about others, just as long as his teaching is taken. Another significant part for this chapter is the part where Enoch took off the Igwugu's head. It is also a sign of where things start to fall apart. For the Igbo culture, the act of taking off the mask is a way where the ancestral spirit was broken off. They believe that there's no human under the mask, as the mask turned into a spirit and they can talk to the spirit through the mask. On the other hand, we can also see how the following of a stricture or a dogma very strictly can also create a fanaticism. This can also be seen with Enoch's provocation towards the Igbo culture, the ceremony itself, and also can be seen that he is quite disappointed that he doesn't really create a holy war. So that's it for this chapter. We'll be continuing on with the next chapter.
Hi, hello everyone, Assalamualaikum. My name is Irdina and I am going to continue to present chapter 23 of Things Fall Apart, and we are down to the final 3 chapters of Things Fall Apart. So in the following events of what happened in chapter 22 where the church got destroyed, in chapter 23, Okonkwo feels happy after so long because of the destruction of the church. Why does Okonkwo feel happy? It's because he feels that the clansmen, the men of Umuofia, listened to him when they decided to fight like warriors, like old warriors. So Okonkwo feels happy because of that. So the clansmen listened to Okonkwo's advice and acted like warriors, even though they did not agree to kill the missionary or drive the Christians out of Umuofia. Even though they did not kill the missionary, Okonkwo feels happy that they even listened to him. Yes. And then the district commissioner comes back from his trip and requests the leaders of Umuofia to meet with him. District commissioner questioned their actions at the church, and the leaders of Umuofia explained to him in the court. After the district commissioner came back from his trip, they got invited to the church to explain what happened while he was gone. And the district commissioner said that we should discuss it like friends. We should settle this problem in a proper manner, not like through fighting. The leaders of Umuofia, they put down their weapons, their machetes. They tried to explain, and then the government men in the court straight away just handcuffed them. They took the leaders of Umuofia to the guard room, and then they were all imprisoned. So next, the clansmen were all imprisoned. They are physically abused. To bail, they have to pay 250 bags of cowries. In the prison, they were beaten. They got their heads shaved. In the prison, they were not given food or water. They were not given toilet facilities. They cannot go to toilet. And then after 3 days of silence, because maybe they are flustered that they are in prison, so Okonkwo broke the silence and said, we should have killed the white man when we had the chance. And then other beatings happen in the prison when they talk about something, and the guard heard them, and then they got beaten. Next, court messengers went around the village telling everyone that the prisoners would be released only after the village paid a fine of 250 bags of cowries. So the court messengers told the people of Umuofia. They went back to the village. What they did not know about is that the 250 bags of cowries, 50 bags of cowries are for the court messengers because they considered it as a intermediate profit. And then the people of Umuofia hold a town meeting and decided to collect the money to pay the fine so that the leaders can be released. So after knowing that their leaders can only be released after they pay the fine, the people of Umuofia decided to collect the money immediately. So what is the significance of this chapter specifically? I think this chapter describes about the oppressive sides of the district commissioner, the British generally, because although the district commissioner said that, come, let's hear your side of story, but they ended up handcuffing the leaders of Umuofia and put them in the prison. Not only they put them in the prison, they also want the village to pay the fine. So we can see how oppressive they are in this part. Also, we can see that the court messengers, they misuse their jobs to take advantage of the villagers in Umofia. They wanted 50 bags of curries for themselves. They want a portion for themselves. Not only that, not only they took money from the people of Umofia, but the guards in the prison also abused the leaders of Umofia in prison. What's so contrasting about this chapter is because the district commissioner who claims that these people, these leaders of Umofia, you will not be ill-treated, but ended up being in prison and they got their heads shaved, they got beaten. So that's the irony of this chapter specifically. And then the court messengers also took advantage of the villagers to make them pay the fine, but they also take a portion for themselves. So I think that's all for chapter 23.
Okay, so hi, I'm in charge of chapter 24 and 25. But first, let's talk about chapter 24. This is the summary of chapter 24. So the first thing is the 6 men who were arrested are free after the villagers paid the required fine. And once they arrive at the village, none of the villagers speak to those men. And Okonkwo is with his relatives and his friends in his hut. Still, they don't speak to each other, and they could see scars behind his back. And on the same night, the village crier calls for a meeting next morning, and Okonkwo he sleeps with anticipation because he wants to take his revenge. He wants to get rid of those white people, and he hopes that the villagers or the Umofians will feel the same. If not, then he will take the revenge by himself. He will take action on his own. And the next morning during the meeting, there are so many people come. People from other villages come as well, except for those who are very friendly with white people. And during the meeting, one of the 6 men who were arrested, he said to the village that they need to take action against the white people, meaning that the white people must go. And he even said that they might have to kill each other, because as we know that there are some people who are on the white people side. And surprisingly, during the meeting, 5 court messengers came to the meeting to stop the meeting. They asked them to stop everything, and Okonkwo, since he hates white people so bad, he's not having it. Therefore, he decides to behead one of the court messengers. So once he did that, the rest of the messengers run away, and none of the villagers actually stopped them from running away. In fact, Okonkwo's action was questioned by the villagers. They asked, why did he do it? So from this incident, Okonkwo realizes that the villagers, they don't want to fight. They don't want to have a war with white people. Then that's the moment where he realized that it's over now. He cannot do anything about it. So after the incident, Okonkwo doesn't speak to anyone unless they are talking about taking the British people down. Other than that, he doesn't associate with other people. He does not participate in any activities. So that's it about chapter 24. Okay, moving on to analysis of chapter 24. There are 2 things that are important. The first one is Okonkwo's realization and Umofian's fear. Now in the chapter, Okonkwo finally realizes that the villagers don't they don't want to fight. They don't want to have a war with white people, which angers Okonkwo because according to Okonkwo, Europeans used to be men, and the fact that they want to keep things peaceful without fighting angers him more. And I think that his anger is driven by his fear of being weak. Like he doesn't want to be weak like his father. As we all know, Okonkwo and his father are different. They have different characters. So after that incident, the incident of none of the villagers stopped the court messengers from running away from the incident of the villagers question Okonkwo's action. He realizes that he cannot do anything about it. He lost hope. Okay, and he is the icon of caught between culture and change. And he is caught between identity and having a large fear of violence. Now, talking about fear of violence, Europeans' fear is also important in this chapter. This is because I think the reason why they don't want to have a war with white people is because they know that they would lose to the white people, I guess, in terms of technology, and they don't want to hurt their fellow clansmen. Another thing is that it's pretty much irony because during the meeting, one person said that we need to take action against the white people. We need to protect each other. But then once Okonkwo beheaded the messenger, none of them actually backed him up. They even questioned Okonkwo's action. So that's it for chapter 24. Now let's move on to chapter 25. This is the summary of chapter 25. Following the death of the messenger, the district commissioners come to the village to find Okonkwo. But Obirika says that he is not here, he's not in the village. But later, Obirika leads all the men to a place after Obirika got threatened by the commissioners. He brings them to an open area where Obirika has hung himself. And Obirika asks help from the commissioners. He asks the commissioners to take his body down and bury Okonkwo. And this is because according to the tradition, the people of the clan cannot touch the body of a man a body of fellow clan who commit suicide, because it is considered as sin against the earth. And Obirika accused the commissioners of Okonkwo's death. He said that you're the one who drove him to do this. He was a great man, now he has to bury it like a dog. So from this incident, one of the district commissioners decides to write a story about the incident in his book. He decided to write about this incident in the book called The Pacification of Primitive Tribes of the Lower Niger, which is in the book. He tells a story about how he civilized the people of Nigeria. So that's it for chapter 25. Okay, now let's analyze chapter 25. There are two things that need to be highlighted in this chapter. The first one is Okonkwo's death, and the next is the book. Now, Okonkwo's death is pretty anticlimactic ending, if that's how you explain it, because it against his character. Because Okonkwo, as we all know, that he is very masculine. He likes to go to war. He likes to protect the things that he loves. So having him with such character committing suicide is something that is unexpected, which shows the implication of colonial change. Now, this is dramatically presented by the writer. His death shows how badly is the effect of colonial change. It's like saying, if we cannot protect our culture, it's just bad that people are willing to kill themselves because they fail to protect the things that they love. So that explains his death. Another thing is that his death signifies the death of culture, because Okonkwo, he is very much active in protecting the culture, right? So his death equals to the death of culture. Now, moving on to the next part. The next thing that is important, which is the book. So the book is very much ironic. This is because how ignorant it shows how ignorant white people are, because they think that they are entitled to write something about African culture from that one specific experience. For instance, in this part, the district commissioner sees Okonkwo's death. So from that incident, he's like, "Oh, I'm going to write this in my book," which is very much weird because you know nothing about African culture and you want to talk about it, and then you want to talk how you civilize all these civilize the Nigerian people. And another thing that is irony is that the white people present themselves as the savior of, in this case, savior for Africa, of African people, when in reality their method of pacification is most likely involve violence, and it involves death as well. So yeah, that pretty much shows the character of these white people. I'm not saying that they don't bring any positivities in it, they do, but it's because they think that they are the heroes of African people, when in reality they actually destroyed the culture. And yeah, I think that's it for analysis of chapter 25. Now, the significance of part 3. What are the significance of part 3? Simple. Part 3 is the climax of the novel. Okay, from part 3, it shows how things are falling apart, which answer the questions of the title. From part 3 you could see that how things are falling apart, what are the things are falling apart, and the effect of things that are falling apart. So you can see everything here from in part 3, from chapter 20 until chapter 25. So that's it for part 3. That's the end of our summary for the novel.